and, you know, your dedication to excellence. And I think, well, gosh, I would love to work with, you know, I always love to work with people who are able to do that with the amount of information that you have to process working for the district. So it's great to know that we have you. And, you know, I thought last night, I usually don't ask questions, but I'm curious if you have one thing that has stood out for you that's been sort of a favorite thing that you've done with the district, if you want to share anything with us. And if not, that's okay too. Okay.
Oh, sounds like they're there.
One thing that I've done for the district.
Talk this way.
Yeah, that's really stood out that you've enjoyed.
Your
Hold
favorite.
on. If you could see us, it's, yeah. What was the question?
Oh, just if there's one thing that stands out that you've really enjoyed in your time with the district.
Mainly the accounts payable, the numbers, the finances, learning as much as I can, absorbing everything. The
Excellent.
details, everything defined to numbers, anything with numbers.
It is satisfying, isn't it? I can see Shell shaking her head when the numbers all work out, you know,
Numbers
Shell and
don't
Colleen. Numbers don't lie. So I'll turn it to the public to see if anyone else would like to make comment, and then I'll come to you, Pat, and then close.
So can I jump in, Mary? This is Kirsten. I am also here with Jen. We're celebrating her tenure together.
Excellent.
And it's been a pleasure to get to know Jen in the years that I've worked for the district, far less than her 10 years. But she has been able to train me as a backup in accounts payable and some of the other front office procedures. And she's a great teacher and she really knows her stuff. And yeah, I'm very happy that she is who she is because she's super easy to work with.
Excellent. Thanks, Kirsten.
And Kirsten took all of the words right out of my mouth, so ditto. And Leslie has her hand up.
Great. Go ahead, Leslie.
So it's not as much fun to embarrass Jennifer when I can't see her face. But so Jennifer's worked for us for 10 years as a full-timer, but what some of you may not know is that she started her work for us in the Parks and Rec department from the CalWorks program. She is a CalWorks success story, and I am so proud of her, and I think she's amazing, and I'm so grateful to her because she's so patient with me. I'm sure she's patient with everybody, but I can only be grateful that she's patient with me and all of my goof ups and mess ups and failures to code things correctly, and she never gets mad. And I just really, really love her so much. And congratulations, Jen. You're amazing.
Thank you. Okay. Joey, your camera came on. Are you going to speak too?
Yeah, if that's okay. You know,
Please.
It's a pleasure to work for the district, but part of what makes it so cool is the people we get to work with, and it's a pleasure every day to be able to go to work with Jennifer because she's such a good person to learn from. She's supportive, and I think she's able to make work fun. So congratulations, Jen.
Fantastic.
I can't
Anyone
find
else?
my hand button, but this is James, and I don't know where it went, but I didn't want to like miss out on speaking to this. Jennifer's really mean to me. I just wanted to get that out there. No, love Jennifer to pieces, and she does. Leslie touched on it, having patience.
I am very mean to him.
She has a lot of patience, and sometimes I'm not easy to work with, but Jennifer understands that the most out of everybody, I believe. But I also want to commend Jennifer. You're doing such an amazing job, and I enjoy working with you, even though most of the time you're mad at me because I put a wrong code on something. But she corrects me and keeps me in line. So with that, good job. Congratulations, Jennifer. And I'm still looking for my hand, April, but I'll find it for next time.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else from the public and staff?
Yeah, I do want to chime in, and I guess I will right now too. And board, I know you know, but you have a great staff here. It's been amazing working with them, and Jen really epitomizes that. And those guys pulled patience out, and that's what I was going to say too, is that she's been teaching me as we're going along, and I keep going, so what's this number? And Jen has been extremely patient with me and teaching me how to get through this stuff. So every opportunity I'm going to tell you how great a staff you have, and you really do, and Jen epitomizes it. You don't get people that hang out for 10 years unless they're really good, and the rest of the people they work with are really good.
Yes, we're so glad to have you. So thanks, Jen. Thanks everybody for, Colleen, would you like to
I was going to
speak
say,
up again?
I just want to kind of bring this back around and say, Jennifer, I'm proud of you and I'm proud to work with you. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Yes, thanks for everyone showing up and speaking. Were you trying to speak, Jen? I saw your lips moving, but you guys are on mute.
I was gonna say something, but I'm horrible at talking. But like Leslie was saying, I did come as a CalWorks person and was able to work my way into MCSD, and it's been nothing but a great learning experience every day. And it's really as a family, you know. Everybody we work with, whether it's be ops, you know, human resources, finances, parks and rec, all of them, it's like a small family. And I definitely got lucky. And Greg not being here, he was one of the ones, him, Diane, Sharon, all went to bat for me to get hired on. So it was definitely a huge blessing. So thank you all for everything you said. And James, I will remember what you said.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Really glad to get to honor you at 10 years, Jen, and look forward to seeing that number keep climbing. Okay. Take care. And we are going to move into item E2.
We need to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No one's made a motion or a second.
We need a
Don't
motion.
forget the resolution.
I think, did I hear a motion out of Director Couch?
Yeah, I will make a motion that we honor for Jennifer Olson for serving McKinley-Mill Community Services for 10 continuous years. And I wish we had cake. I hope you guys had cake at the office today. This virtual thing, you know, is cutting out the.
We're planning something
Tomorrow.
lethal at the staff meeting next week.
Okay.
Great. So we have a motion.
Second.
We've got a second from Director Mayo. And roll call.
All right. Director Barsanti?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, okay. Your bandwidth, I think, is a little slow. So, but I got you. Yes. Director Corbett. You'll need to unmute, John. I think he's a yes. I can't tell. John, I still didn't hear you. I'll move. Okay, good.
Yes.
I got that. Director Couch.
Yes.
Director Mayo.
Yes.
President Burke.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Sorry about that. And meaning no disrespect, Jen. And moving on to item E2, review and adopt MCSD Conflict of Interest Code with suggested changes. This is on page 37, and we turn to April.
All right. So every year, every 2 years, we are required to do a review of our conflict of interest code. Usually what happens is the elections department sends it to me, and then I I'm able to gather the information, and I usually send it to our legal counsel. So this has been reviewed by legal counsel, and there are some substantial changes, but what you'll notice is that the changes are actually simplify it, and you'll see comments from our counsel about why these changes have happened, and he can speak to them if you have any questions on that. But basically, instead of writing out the entire conflict of interest code from the FPPC, it's being just referenced in our conflict of interest code. And that cuts down a lot. We actually went from like 14 pages to 4 pages or something like that. So, so staff recommends the board review the provided information, accept public input, and adopt Resolution 2020-20 to accept the MCSD Conflict of Interest Code with suggested changes by legal counsel.
So
Thank you,
moved.
April. Oh, we have a motion. Would anyone like to second at this time?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and I'm going to turn to Russ Gans, our legal counsel, to see if he would like to say anything more before questions.
Just briefly, actually, the Fair Political Practices Commission actually recommends that you adopt their standard regulation and code rather than restate and recite independent conflicts of interest codes. The reason is because oftentimes codes become out of date, they don't get updated, there's slight language discrepancies that that cause some concern. So in their the FPPC regulations actually just recommend you adopt their code by reference, which you can do, and then be compliant with the regulations. So we recommend you do that, and then we try to insert some comments on other aspects that needed slight revision to the extent there are any questions. Other than that, thought it pretty straightforward.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, I will turn, oh, here we go.
We went
Director
from
Couch.
13 pages for anyone who's in the general public. We went from 13 pages down to 4, and looking at the older one, there was an awful lot of red lines through stuff. So
yeah,
it was nice to read the 4 pages that was easy to read, and I think it's a great job.
Yeah, of course, the reality is, though, your conflict of interest code is much longer. You just have to refer to the section, statutory section.
Okay, let's open it up for public comment.
Because there is somebody on the phone, and I believe they have to hit *9 in order to raise their hand, but I'm going to unmute them in case they have anything to speak on this. Do you have anything to say on the phone? Hearing nothing.
Okay, bring it back to the board. And so we have a motion and a second. Any other comment or question?
I'll move that we adopt it.
Oh, okay, we have a motion and a second, so I'm ready for a roll call vote.
Okay, Director Barsanti.
Yes.
Director Corbett.
Yes.
Director Couch.
Yes.
Director Mayo. Director Mayo.
Oh.
Oh, uh-oh. Either he froze or he fell asleep.
I think. Okay. Director Burke.
Well, yes.
I mean, you're President Burke.
Yes. So I guess that's an abstination.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
should I yell really loud?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we okay to proceed?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Item E3, consider regular board meeting dates, time and location, and we are going to stick with you, April, our board secretary.
All right, so for this one, every year around this time, we go through the calendar and get the board the dates of what would be regular calendar dates. This particular year, there is none that land on a holiday. So So basically, this is an informational only item. So staff recommends that the board review the consider the proposed 2021 schedule for MCSD board meetings held on the first Wednesday of each month for the 2021 calendar year. Outside of the board meeting, directors are requested to review the attachment and provide any conflicting dates to the board secretary, either in person or in an email. The item will be scheduled again for October 7th, 2020 board meeting, at which time the board can take a final decision. And because of the changes with the Brown Act, you will notice that the locations have been stated our usual locations or the teleconference via Zoom information.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or any guidance for staff related to the meeting times for 2021?
No.
Okay, so this is an informational item. Are there any questions, or I will open it up for public comment.
I don't see any, and I unmuted the person on the phone when you said that, so there
Okay.
seems to be none.
Seems to be none. So just to double check, anything further? This is informational item only, so we can move on if there's nothing more.
We're good.
Okay. Then we are moving on to item E4, annual board
Do it
self-evaluation. Oh, annual self-evaluation review and discussion. And we are staying, you again. Is that what you said? Staying with April to lead us through this item.
Okay, so per the Board of Directors Policy Manual, Rule 11, the board is committed to its own performance as a board in order to identify the board's strengths and areas in which it may be improved or improve the board's functioning. The goal of the self-evaluations are to clarify roles, enhance harmony and understanding among board members, and to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the board meetings. The ultimate goal is to improve MCSD policies for the benefit of McKinleyville community and employees of the district. Members of the board completed this evaluation worksheet. The worksheet included qualifying questions that had a numerical answer ranging from 1 to 5 and spaces for comments. The results were compiled and tabulated, and they can be found in attachment 1. Staff has reviewed the staff evaluation process and would like to suggest moving the self-evaluation worksheet to a digital platform to save time for both the board and staff. Additionally, the board may want to review the questions in the future to ensure that the desired results of these self-evaluations are being met. Staff is prepared to provide suggestions at a future meeting should the board wish to explore this option. Oh,
Well,
sorry. So your recommendation is for the board to review the information presented, process desired outcomes, and overall compile of the data, open for public comment, and discuss the results of the 2020 board self-evaluation.
Great. Well, first, thank you to staff for making some suggestions to improve upon the self-evaluation form. And I'll turn it over to my board members to see if there are comments that you wish to speak to or draw our attention to in our compiled self-evaluation results. So hearing none, General Manager, do you have any comment on this item?
No, not really. April touched on it a little bit. It might help to have, more open-ended questions. And Director Corbett had also commented on that rather than just a numerical rating. Leave space for the board to comment on what could be improved or, things they would like to pursue. And I think that would be, if the board is amenable to that, something that we might consider next go around.
Well, I very much would be in favor of that. I think, these are really easy to answer because they are really yes or no kind of questions, and it would be nice to draw out a little more insight from the board. So I would be in favor of that. We're not voting on it, but it'd be nice to hear if, and it sounds like Director Corbett, that was your thinking as well.
Yes, it was. It's a little fluff ball to me. And so we need to get a little bit more meat to it. And I just wanted to stress navigating a split community. And
Oh, we lost you there. Split community.
I can't do anything different.
Okay. We got most of it.
So I appreciate John's comments on that. Although, John, I'm going to become a vegetarian.
All right. I'm gonna open it up to the public. If the public would like to make comment, I see a Tom Boyer.
Yes, you do have one hand raised with Tom, and I will unmute the phone too after Tom. Go for it. Tom, we can't tell if we can't see you, so you'll have to make sure that you, there you go.
Okay. All right, hold on.
We can hear you now, so that's fine. You don't have to see you, but there you are.
Yeah. The only suggestion I have is that these Zoom meetings started as a kind of a temporary measure until the virus disappeared. But maybe some more training and some more resources available to the Zoom meetings would make the meetings go a little bit better. One thing that I would like is for the participants to give their full names at the bottom of the sheets, because I don't, as a newbie, I'm not sure who's who and what role they play. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Tom, for that comment. I as well agree with that.
And I just want to mention that it is always helpful, but I can say that it is not a requirement according to law that people say their full name. So, but it is helpful to know who it is. Like Jay Henry could fill out his complete name right there, just saying. Person on the phone, I've unmuted you. Do you have any comment on this? Nope. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for speaking up on that, Tom. I think, you know, to weigh in a little bit too, the Zoom meeting is worth considering, you know, how we're able to function here. And, you know, transparency is great, but performance on the Zoom meeting, you know, this is how we're trying to communicate with the public. So paying attention to the fact that our format just totally changed is very reasonable. Okay, so let's see. This is just an informational item. So looking back to the board, our general manager, anything further?
I do not.
Okay, then we're going to move right along to item E5. This is initiate process for general manager's 3-month performance evaluation. Is it really 3 months already? And I'm gonna stay with April, who's gonna present this item as well. Thanks, April.
Yes, so it has been 3 months, or it will be 3 months. So basically, and I have put it in my calendar to make sure that that you guys get this the month before you need to actually do the evaluation. And so since you did start June 1st, the end of August would technically be full 3 months. It is a part of his contract, which I did leave that in there with attachment 1, that he will have a 3-month and a 6-month before he has his annual. During this open public meeting, the board president will select 1 board member who will consolidate all 5 board member evaluations. Once a member of the board has been selected, the schedule should be established. Now, I learned from last year to give some suggested dates, especially having to deal with what I'm going to need in order for to do things for the meeting and that sort of a thing. So the date to complete and return sealed evaluations to the board secretary, I'm suggesting August 14th or around there. Date the appointed consolidator will retrieve the evaluations August 17th. Date to review information to be returned to the board secretary for confidential distribution, August 26th. And then the date for closed session for the general manager's performance evaluation will be September 2nd. So at tonight's meeting, I will provide you with all of the evaluation forms, which you guys got in a sealed or in an envelope. It wasn't sealed because you will return it in that envelope to me, either in person, or you can put it in the Dropbox. It is confidential. It's written confidential on it. So tape it up. And I do have an electronic version. So if you would like to do it electronically, please let me know. I can send that to you as well. So staff recommends that the board discuss, take public comment, and ask the board president to select one board member to consolidate all board member evaluations and set the schedule.
Great. So any question or comment from board? And any public would like to make comment on this item?
I do not see any.
Okay, so then it is to me to assign a board member to compile. I would like to receive a digital version first. Would anyone else prefer to have a digital version? Okay, seeing none. And I would like to ask Director Couch, would you be willing to compile these? Director Barsanti did our last compilation, and you're next on my screen.
My turn. I can't say no.
Well, I would entertain a no if
No,
you
it's
chose to. Okay, so thank you. And I propose the outline that was prepared for us in the board item. So we're all to return our evaluations by August 14th.
Thank you, David.
Yes, thank you, David. Okay, do we need anything more on that item?
Nope.
Okay, moving on to item E6. This is an agreement between MCSD and MUSD, and I'm turning to our Recreation Director, Leslie Frisbee, to lead us through this agenda item.
Okay. So staff recommends the board review the information provided, take public comment, and authorize the board president to execute the agreement. So in 2018, the McKinleyville Union School District received a 21st Century Community Learning Center after-school program grant and took over the administration of after-school programming for Dow's Prairie and Morris Elementary Schools, which had previously been administered by the district's Park and Recreation Department. McKinleyville Union School District entered into a memorandum of understanding with the district for the 2018-19 and the 2019-20 school years to subcontract with MCSD for the provision of part-time after-school leaders to facilitate the 21st Century Community Learning Center program activities. At this time, it is desired to renew the MOU for the 2020-21 school year. The MOU for the 2020-21 school year can be reviewed in attachment 1.
You're marking that.
The original MOU for 2018-19 was reviewed and approved by District Council. As this is a renewal, the MOU with changes only to the dates and compensation amounts, this iteration was not submitted for legal review. Any questions?
This is John Corbett Moore comment. I told you based upon similar grants that I've seen where the schools have taken it over, they almost always come back And so I appreciate your contracting and would predict in 3 years they'll want you to run the program like you started out with.
Any other comments or questions? Anything, let's see, I could turn it to the public, see if there's any public comment on this item. Seeing none, let's see. I just flipped my page. This is a roll call. We are, yes, this is a approval of an agreement. So anything further from the board, or I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the written contract with the schools. Is that good? Approval of the agreement between McKinleyville Union School District and the McKinleyville Community Service District for the provision of after-school leaders to the 21st Century Community Learning Center after-school program at Dalles Prairie Elementary School and Morris Elementary School.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And a roll call.
Director Barsanti.
Yes.
Director Corbett. Unmute. Okay, there you go. Good. Thumbs up works too. Director Couch.
Yes.
And Director Mayo, you will have to unmute yourself.
Or Pat might have to
Or
unmute.
give me a thumbs up. Okay, thumbs up. Good.
Okay.
Sorry, Dennis, we had to mute you because you were yelling at the dog.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he was chasing. I've got some steers out here in the front yard. The damn dog goes out there and chases them. Sorry, I apologize.
Okay, thanks.
I didn't shoot the dog, so that was good.
Don't shoot the dog. And
I'm President Burke. Did I say
Yes.
your name? I can't remember. I'm sorry.
No, yes, you got me. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, moving on to item E7. This is an open space zone, and it's a little funny. And I'll turn to our general manager to walk us through, and this is a roll call vote item.
Right, and this is a little funny. So back in 2006, 2007, Dan Morgan began the development of a 26-lot Morgan subdivision on Underwood Road. At the time, Mr. Morgan requested the district to accept a detention basin at the southwest corner of the subdivision off Minea Court as an open space. In September 2007, the district board passed resolution 2007-14, initiating the formation of the Morgan subdivision open space zone number 24. And that resolution is included in the board packet as attachment 3. In November of 2007, a public hearing on the formation was held and the board passed resolution 2007-16, forming the Morgan subdivision open space zone number 24. And that's included as attachment 4 in your board packets. Then based on a letter dated April 11th, 2011 from Dan Morgan to Jason Sehone, Mr. Morgan had a verbal agreement with the former general manager, Tom Harking, that Mr. Morgan would continue to maintain the open space zone and the district would not begin assessing the charges for maintaining the open space zone until Mr. Morgan requested it. And the letter goes on to state, I would like to continue to maintain the detention basin myself until I notify MCSD to begin maintenance and I transfer the detention basin parcel by deed. Back in August of last year, Mr. Morgan then approached the district and said he would like us to take over and transfer the deed to us and have the district take over maintenance for the detention basin. Staff went out and inspected the detention basin. He had let a bunch of big trees grow up in it, so we asked him to remove those. There was some other debris we asked him to remove as well. but the inlet and outlet basically for the detention basin were in very good shape. So in February of 2020, the Morgans provided a grant deed for the property. The district further requested that a phase 1 be performed. Phase 1 was completed, and there was no recognized environmental conditions of concern. Fiscal analysis, we actually had been, during the original 2007 engineer's report, a fee of $5.07 was developed for the maintenance charges for each of the 26 lots. Subsequently, 2 lots were developed into duplexes, so there are actually 28 accounts on there. So we used our general formula to convert the $5.07 per lot back in 2007, and it comes out to be $7.47 in today's dollars for the maintenance of those lots. So since the district had already approved the formation of the open space zone, we basically already sent letters out to the property owners saying the district is taking over maintenance of this. So what staff recommends that the board consider, discuss, take public comment, and adopt resolution 2020-21, authorizing the acceptance and recordation of a grant deed to real property for APN 511-084-046, corresponding to the Morgan subdivision open space zone number 24.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from our board on this item?
I'm just wondering if we had anybody oppose it or any comments. Did anything come in from the property owners?
No, not at all. Mr. Morgan actually still owns several of those lots. So this charge is going directly to him as well. But no, we haven't heard any public comments up to this point on this.
Gonna let other board members chime in here. I just need to turn on the lights and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm gonna turn it to the public to see if there's any comment in the public. Hearing none. So subject to any more discussion on this item, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move. I move that we adopt resolution 2020-21, authorizing the acceptance and recordation of a grant deed to real property located in McKinleyville, California, APN 511-084-046, the Morgan subdivision open space zone number 24.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other comment or question? Then,
pretty
yes?
standard thing that the district does. So other than the unusual timing of it, it's pretty standard item.
Yes, water, wastewater, streetlights, open space, and recreation. So open space management is something that, a service that we do provide. So subject to any more comment, then I will, do you have a comment there, Director Corbett?
Yes, I just wanted to say we recoup the costs, and that's essential. But most of the subdivision activity in McKinneyville would stop if there's no one to take over these open space easements. We get flood control out of it because it gets put on the open space, but it's pretty critical both for the economy and for the open space, which is nice for the residents, and flood control. So.
And just a sort of a comment question. We do provide this service at quite a low cost, and I am interested in, making sure that the district is recovering our costs. So I don't know if there's more that our general manager would like to say on that.
Yeah, and I agree. We do definitely need to look at the cost and the cost for maintaining things. This one had already gone through and had the costs established, so we couldn't really relook at that cost because it had been adopted by the board back in 2007. But the next one that comes around, that is my intent, is to do a really careful, thorough review of the cost that it costs us to maintain those areas and make sure that we are charging appropriately.
Great. And Colleen, is there more would you like to add?
Update and make sure that we're charging the true costs. And I don't feel bound by a prior board motion that's dated because there should be a cost of living in it. So I just want to say we want to make sure we're getting the costs to the district so it's neutral to us financially.
And I'd like to speak to that if I might.
Please.
We generally run on a quarterly basis a report that's drawn out of the general ledger that tracks the labor hours and costs that go into maintaining each individual open space. They all have a code that's dependent on their general ledger account, and also that shows up on the time card so that we can literally track each hour that any employee spends there. And we run those general ledger reports about once a quarter. So we can see not just for the open spaces, but also for like all the parks programs and stuff like that. So the information that if anyone needs it is pretty readily available. Just wanted to let you guys know.
I just want to thank you for that. That was my understanding. And I'm surprised we're not automatically updating the costs on even these older ones.
So that might be a point that we bring up when we do our next strategic planning stuff. That be one of the things that we put into the mix of regular reevaluation.
So I did hear our general manager say when a new one comes around, we'll definitely look at that. And then, so I'm hearing reevaluation of old ones. And how would we go about doing that?
Well, I think we approach it in terms of our next strategic planning, process when we bring things up and for reevaluation, et cetera.
And I think I just heard Colleen say that we do track this. Are you saying so? We are accounting for real
we do track it, and I believe we also have an increment. Like we do with the streetlights. I think we use the same index to increment those costs. So basically what tracking allows us to do is to verify whether we're spending too many hours on a particular open space given what we're collecting for it. So, and generally those rarely run over. Those are, James and Eric are pretty careful about assigning time, but we do have some of the information on that. If you guys want to undertake to look at using a different index during the next strategic planning session, that's certainly an option. But yeah, right now we do track that.
Yep. This is John Corbett. I'm not sure strategic planning isn't overkill. I agree with Colleen. We have all the information. I believe longstanding policy is we are to update it. If we slipped up on one big deal, we just need to enforce. I think we've already agreed.
Okay, I think we have a motion and a second. I opened it for public, did I?
No, you haven't opened it for public yet.
Okay.
And I don't know if Leslie wanted to say something because she unmuted herself.
I know we have the escalator for, increasing the fees, But something that I noticed that hasn't been considered over time for a lot of our zones, particularly when the integrated pest management policy was passed, is the increased amount of time some of these spaces take, and they haven't been, like, the engineers reports in the documents for every open space zone are the original engineers reports with the original allotted number of hours. And so when we talk about reassessing some of the open space maintenance zones, it's not the cost per hour calculator, it's the number of hours required to do the job. So that is something that I noticed, that is something our maintenance crew definitely notices, and it is a thing that kind of stresses them out because some spaces are taking longer than they used to, and it's not documented anywhere that they are like that so either they are spending the hours that's in the engineer's report and it's not getting done to the standard that they would like to get it done, or they're spending more time than what's in the reports, if that makes sense.
I think what you're saying, since
the approach would be to refer to the general manager to within 3 months, come back with a comprehensive report on the status of our existing policies, make sure that we have a comprehensive, easy, efficient from a staff time standpoint approach to updating the cost.
Sounds good.
Okay, I have that noted down.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Leslie. And with that, I will turn. I'm ready for a roll call.
Okay. Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Corbett? Give me a thumbs up, John. Okay, thank you. Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
And President Burke?
Yes. We are moving right along to item E8, review and discuss operations reserve policy. And we again turn to our finance director, Colleen Trask.
Okay, here we go. Actually, compared to the last couple ones of these, this one's fairly straightforward. Staff recommends that the board review the proposed reserve policy changes for the operating reserve, discuss, take public comment, and provide any direction to staff on any parameters or other changes they wish to see incorporated into the final policy. Our current reserve policy was passed in 2012, and for the operating reserve, the language reads as follows. This is fairly short, so I figured I'd put it all in. The operating fund is an unrestricted fund and serves a short-term or immediate purpose. Monies held in the operating fund meet a variety of potentially competing purposes, including paying operating expenses during temporary revenue shortfalls. This fund would also be used to cover timing differences for periodic expenses paid in advance of revenues collected and to pay for expenses for special events not budgeted. In developing the annual operating budget, staff expends a tremendous amount of effort to identify its program expenses and prudent spending levels. However, unforeseen developments can occur which cause the actual program expenses to exceed the budgeted expenses. In addition, opportunities not budgeted for may arise during the fiscal year that require the district to expend monies which will not be reimbursed. Other times, the district will pay expenses that will be reimbursed only after the event is complete. The operating fund would cover these types of situations. The target criteria to meet MCSD cash flow needs and unbudgeted expenses, the operating fund will be equal to approximately 6 months of the annual budgeted operating expenses. So the issue is that overall, the language reads very similarly to several other sections of the 2012 reserve policy. The issues of timing differences, unanticipated opportunities or expenditures, and the need to cover expenditures in advance of related revenue have all been raised before, particularly in the catastrophe reserve and the repair and replacement reserve. In this case, the operating reserve is supposed to be an unrestricted short-term fund that acts similarly to a line of credit from a bank that they would provide. At 6 months of total budgeted district expenditures, the current calculation for the operating reserve provides far more funding than is needed for a short-term line of credit. For the current fiscal year, the operating reserve as presently calculated would total almost $4.2 million. This would presumably be held in the money market fund since the purpose is to bridge any small timing gaps between expenditures and revenue. The other designated reserves to be held in the money market fund include funding for compensated absences, customer deposit refunds, and the PAYGO capital projects. We've discussed this in previous board meetings. The total is approximately $1.5 million for the current fiscal year. Adding another $4.2 million to that amount for a short-term line of credit seems a rather unnecessary and unwise use of cash, particularly given the low returns expected for the foreseeable future. There have been times, such as during the construction of the wastewater management facility, when holding a larger amount in the money market fund is necessary to bridge between expenditures and grant or loan funding. However, these times are infrequent and can be managed with a little bit of planning between the finance director and general manager. A certain level of flexibility can certainly be built into the revised language to accommodate these kinds of events. The fact is that for large capital projects, the repair and replacement reserve is the proper place from which to draw those funds. The basis of the entire revised reserve policy is a regular review of utility rates every 5 years as permitted by law. As long as that policy is followed, there will be far fewer unanticipated expenditures or fiscal emergencies, which obviates the need for a full 6 months of expenditures as a credit line. On a more practical level, the turnaround for a draw on the CalTrust investment accounts is 2 days at the most. So holding 6 months worth of expenditures for that purpose seems somewhat unrealistic. The suggested revision to the policy language reads as follows. The operating fund is intended to act as a short-term line of credit for the district, covering unanticipated timing gaps between expenditures and revenues or unanticipated necessary expenditures. As a current and short-term reserve, it will be held in the money market account with the other working capital reserves. The operating reserve would be calculated at 30 days of total district expenditures based on the currently approved budget. If any major board-approved capital project temporarily requires additional working capital to bridge between cash expenditure and the receipt of grant or loan funds, the general manager and finance director may draw from the repair and replacement reserve to supplement the operating reserve for the duration of the project. As far as the fiscal analysis goes, the proposed change in calculations from 6 months of expenditures to 30 days would set the current operating reserve at $694,165. The main fiscal impact of holding an operating reserve to act as a line of credit is basically the loss of interest and earnings that would accrue on the funds held in the medium or longer term investment accounts like CalTrust. If the operating reserve is set at the 30 days of expenditures, that loss of interest and earnings revenue would be minimized. So that's what I have, and I'd be certainly open to anything the board would like to add to that or suggest.
I have some questions, Colleen. I have quite a few questions. First of all, what money market do we use? Where is it?
The money market is with Umpqua Bank. It's attached to the checking account.
Okay. And then is the CalTrust you're talking about that's managed by BlackRock? Is that the one you're talking about, the CalTrust?
Yes, some of CalTrust funds I do believe are managed by BlackRock. I can certainly check with CalTrust as to what other managers are.
When I looked at the investments, most of our money was invested there with BlackRock. BlackRock used to be like super good, and they've changed their investment strategy, so our money's at a little more risk now, is my opinion. That's just my opinion. And so I'm thinking, did you calculate the risk? What is the risk for us of our money, that much money being in the stock market and us needing it for an emergency versus it being easily obtainable and being at, you know, certainly possibly lower. Because I mean, there's a good chance the stock market will go down. You know, that would be the risk that we would have if we put all that money in there, and it would be less risky, correct, in the money market. So have you considered the risk of that?
Yes, there is a risk, and that's always true in equity investment. If the board wants to undertake an investment policy review, I'm certainly open to that. But
Well, that's kind of what you're doing with this. You're saying that we need to change what we're doing, correct, with their money, and put our money that would be safe right now into a more risky investment that is emergency money.
Okay. All I'm doing with this suggestion is suggesting that the amount of the total that's calculated for the operating reserve, which I don't think has ever been fully funded, is exceedingly high for something that's basically acting as a short-term line of credit. That's basically all I was trying to do here was for that reserve.
You're saying that we never have really had the 6 months worth of.
Yeah, and that's been a discussion of years ongoing. We don't generally have, or we haven't had enough extra cash to fill all the buckets the way that the 2012 original policy requires them to be calculated. We also have priorities. The pension and OPEB get funded first. The loan reserves really are never touched because they're calculated and held in a completely separate way.
So how much is actually really actual? So how much do we actually have in your operating reserve fund? Well, how much do you?
Right now, we have about 2.7 million in not in the operating reserve, but that's in the working capital reserve in the money market.
So how much of that is operating reserves of the 2.7 million?
I don't think the operating reserve was funded at all last year because virtually all the excess cash went to the pension and OPEB, and what was left went to the repair and replacement.
So what is the reason, if we don't really have this already set up this way, what is the reason that you are proposing this right now?
I've been proposing in pieces an overall revamp of the reserve policy. So and each section of the reserve policy that was passed in 2012 or late 2011 was written a certain way, and I'm trying to make it a little more realistic and a little more workable for the district.
Okay.
Because some of the stuff that was, as it was set up then, probably made really good sense then when it was passed by the board, but it's not helping us now.
Well, instead of us passing this piecemeal, is there some way that you could, that's what you said it was piecemeal, you're a little bit at a time. Is there some way that you could have a revision for us so we could see the whole picture? And
no, that's the plan. This is I'm not passing, I haven't asked the board to pass anything piecemeal.
Okay, that's right. It's just informational. I'm sorry.
Just informational right now, just so everybody gets to know what's current and what's proposed, and then I can bring the whole thing back to the board for adoption and or revision overall. But I was trying to get ideas as we were going along as to what the board would prefer to see.
I thought it was an action item. My apologies. Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes, I wanted to ask Colleen, how does this show up in the budget? Is this an expense or does it just show up as cash?
This isn't really this is not an expense. The budget tracks the revenue streams and expenditures But this is how we hold funds on the balance sheet.
I just wanted to clarify that point.
Yeah.
And then a little bit talking to Shell, we do need to go over the policies, but one of the problems we ran into is as we started to try and get the true value or the true costs of items, is it got more and more complex. And I think it may be more complex than any of us. And so some of these are happening piecemeal because we have an engineer who automatically reviews certain things every 3 and 5 years. I'm not sure we want to put ourselves into that spot. So it's very hard. I originally started off with a comprehensive review, and now I'm into periodic review for all of them as appropriate. Because I think it's smarter than we are right now. It gets very complex the way the money swishes around.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing a little bit at a time to everyone. Thank you, Colleen. I didn't understand you were doing that. I appreciate that you're doing that.
Thanks.
And if I remember, this is the last or close to the last of the policies. Yes. And then did you already cover when it's coming to us as a whole?
I'm hoping to have it consolidated and brought back to the board, hopefully in October. So.
And I have a question too. We were considering the OPEB, which we owe, $7 to $10 million total is our unfunded.
7.4, I think.
Yeah, well, it varies. That's the lowest. The highest is 11 million because there's a, depending on
the range
the market's doing. So is that something that you're also going to put in there? Is there maybe going to be a fund for that? So that, is that something you're considering and going to bring back to us?
Yes, and I wanted to do that separately. This is kind of the overarching policy about how we hold reserves. But the OPEB is going to need something very specific because we need to, what I would like to see the board do is authorize setting up a Section 115 trust.
Yeah, that's really good.
But that's going to be, like you say, that's a fairly complex issue, as Director Corbett pointed out.
It's pretty simple because you're paying like $65,000 a month for retired people's pension. That's over $2 million a year. So that's a very large expense. And so that's something you really, that a lot of our board isn't aware of, and it'd be really good to very simply say, this is how much we have to pay out. And, so we do need a trust fund for that. That would be a very good idea. So, because that's only going to grow with people.
And that's, and you're right. And that's coming.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And try to make it simple so that everybody understands. Wow, we pay $65,000 a month just in retired folks' health. Health. Yeah.
I was going to say I've seen the monthly health insurance bills, and that's not what we're paying, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I got from Greg. I asked what's the nice lady that works and does payroll?
Diane.
Okay, Diane gave me that information, so you might want to talk to her about that.
I will talk. Because that's not what we're paying for. That might be what we're paying for the overall health insurance for every employee, but that's not what we're paying just for the retirees.
Okay, I'll send you that paper that she gave me. Okay, so
that would be lovely. Yes, thank you. That'd be awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shel. Okay. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
John's trying to speak.
Yeah, he's got something good.
Yeah, you're on mute, John.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's inconsistent when you can hear me with different actions on this end, but it's a little bit of an ugly issue, but I think we need to look at that program and where it's going and long-term affordability for the district. It's a huge sum of money. And that would be beyond unpopular. But I think the board would like to at least start thinking through, is this a sustainable program the way we have it set up now? That doesn't mean it can't be substituted with something else, but the numbers just keep growing faster and faster. And at some point that begins to eat into our operations.
Are you talking about the cost of health insurance? Director Corbett?
John, you're on mute.
Yes, okay. The board has already taken, has done one action. I believe it was 2 rounds of negotiations ago during the employee negotiations, and the board acted to put a limitation on new employees can have a lower level PPO health insurance plan funded as opposed to the full freight HMO. And if they want to have the HMO, that they have to pay the difference for themselves. So I know that board action was taken.
Are we
if the board
talking?
wants-
Are we talking about the after the pension health, or are you talking now about the overall?
No, I'm talking about overall for current employees.
All right.
And I do want to pull us back into this item. I think we moved over into another item talking about pensions and recovery, and great idea to bring that back at another time. But I want to see if any more board comment or question related to this item. And turn to the public, open it up for public comment. Okay, seeing none.
I don't see any, no.
Our general manager, is there anything more you'd like to add?
I have nothing to add, except Colleen did great.
Yes, and that's a great way to end here. It is super to see these brought forth as piecemeal with such good explanations to what the changes are, and thank you for all the work on that. It just feels good to get right-sized reserves and policies in place. Thank you very much. We are now moving to our added agenda item E9. And I believe this is to you, Pat, our general manager.
It is, and thank you all very much for your patience and considering this item. So the California Self-Generation Incentive Program, SGIP, is a program set up by PG&E to encourage folks to do alternative energy construction, such as solar or batteries, etc. They have millions of dollars that they're funding these type of projects with. The district was approached by Tesla to see if we would be interested in having some of their battery banks installed at some of our stations. The stations needed to meet a specific criteria of a certain amount of energy use and a certain amount of peak energy use, etc. So we fed Tesla a bunch of our utility information, electrical usage, and they identified 2 of our stations that would meet that criteria. One is the North Bank or Ramey Pump Station, so our main water pumping station. And the other one is the Fisher Lift Station, so our main sewage lift station. So Tesla is willing to fill out the grant application, do all the design, and purchase all the batteries and install them at those 2 stations at no cost to the district. And they then will go back and recoup their costs from this SGIP program from PG&E. So it was something that we've been talking to them about and feeding them data, but then we finally just got the contract here. And the SGIP program just opened, well, it opened up a couple months ago, but the money is running out. They figured the money will be allocated probably by the end of August. So if this is something we're interested in, we need to jump on it. And we got the contract. Your legal counsel and I reviewed it in depth. We had a phone call with Tesla today to ask a few questions on it, and there is a little bit of clarification that we're asking them to come back with on it. The main risk to the district is if we default on anything, and so prevent Tesla from claiming their SCHIP money, then the district could be on the hook for paying what they don't get from SCHIP. It really, the only way we could default on that is if we, willfully go in and start messing with the batteries or something like that. So it's nothing that is much of a risk to the district, but it is a risk. So I want to make sure that the board is aware of that as well. So what I'm asking for the board to provide is authorization for me to act as the authorized signature on the contract. And I would amend that with when your legal counsel and I are in agreement on the provisions of the contract, authorize me to sign it on behalf of the district. Russ, I don't know if there's anything you want to add?
No, simply that the form of the contract will substantially take the form that's been presented to the board for approval tonight. And this is basically the exact same form of agreement that multiple other local public entities have entered recently with Tesla.
Could you describe the risk a little more? Is this a short-term risk in terms of, it's like the risk before these batteries get put into place, or?
No, so the way the SCHIP program works is that when the batteries get installed and start operating, SCHIP will pay out a chunk of the overall cost. And then you need to monitor over 5 years. And if you're meeting the monitoring objectives, SCHIP will pay out the remainder of the costs over those 5 years. So the risk to the district is not a short-term one. There's very little chance that we're going to be in default with them doing the installations and starting the systems up and running. So the risk would be further down the line if something happens that, I don't know, we default on the operation. And the way they have it worded in here is,
Can you tell us where you are when you?
I am on page 5 of the contract, and it's all the breach remedies. If this agreement is terminated by Tesla during the first 5 years of the term, then the buyer shall owe Tesla the following amount as reasonably calculated by Tesla. For each year or portion thereof remaining in the first 5 years of the term, buyer shall pay 10% of the SCHIP incentive, the termination payment. And the overall cost for the so battery value for the North Bank is $511,987, and for Fisher it is $388,899. I should also mention the projected savings for Fisher. Over 10 years, the projected savings is $100,549. And for the 10-year savings on the North Bank is $223,392. And that savings basically is realized, you charge the batteries up in low peak, and then they discharge during high peak rates, so you aren't paying high peak dollars on the operation.
And do these batteries take place of an existing system that does that, or this is a new system that changes the way we're able to draw power?
It's a new system. Both of these stations have backup generators, so if we lose power, we can still run the stations, but then you're burning diesel basically to run those stations. Whereas these would charge up and discharge, and you'd be able to run basically a day off these batteries if we lose power completely, or they'll be run more short term to shave peak off our operating expenses.
So the system they'd be replacing would be the diesel generated
Yeah.
during emergency time.
Right, and they really wouldn't replace that. So what if power went out for an extended period, we would run these off these batteries for 24 hours, and then if power was still out, then we would fire up the generators and they would continue to run the stations.
Are there more questions from the board?
I have a question. I'm just, was this something Greg did, or is this something you brought to us, Pat?
Well, it was actually Tesla approached us. Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District
Okay.
had gotten involved in this program as well, and then Tesla. We heard about it from Humboldt Bay, and Tesla approached us right when we were approaching them. So, kind of both ways.
All right. Thank you. Great.
Any other questions? Let's see. Turn to the public and see if the public has any comment on this item.
Yeah, I feel a little dumb asking this question, but this program that you're referring to, and I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, SPGen or something. Could you spell out what that means?
So the acronym is SGIP, and the acronym stands for Self-Generation Incentive Program.
And is this run by PG&E?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you jump on PG&E's website, you can find additional information on it there.
I guess I feel like I'm still digesting the item. And so I guess to do that, Pat, will you just sort of, I know you started with an explanation, but will you just restate again, why this is important to us?
It's really a cost savings and an emergency operation advantage. It'll allow us to utilize batteries at both Fisher and North Bank to charge up the batteries during low peak, low cost times, and then discharge the batteries to run our system during the higher peak time. So it'll save us money on a day-to-day operation. And it'll also allow us to run off these batteries for about a day if we lose power completely. The main advantage of going through this program is it's no cost to the district. Tesla will do all the legwork for free to the district, but them getting paid back by the PG&E incentive program. So they'll do all the legwork from surveying in the site to doing all the engineering, to do all the permitting, to turning in the grant application, to buying and installing the batteries, to operating them, and to reporting the 5 years of operation data that you need to provide to PG&E for the program. So they'll do all that at no cost to the district. So it'll provide great backup for us at basically no cost. And with a cost savings, with annual cost savings too, of, well, they have about $22,000 roughly per year per station. So a total of $50,000.
And our protection if their system is default or faulty? we have good protections.
Yeah, so they have warranties on their system. So it has to operate for them to get paid back. It has to operate. And, you know, I mentioned the disadvantage if we screw something up, which I trust James not to screw anything up, then that is the risk to the district.
Let's see. Any other comment from board? I do see we have a hand in the audience. So I'm going to turn to Tom Boyer.
My only concern is that PG&E sets the peak period parameters. Is there a guarantee that these peak period parameters won't significantly change between now and what you expect the payback will be?
No, so the payback that I just quoted is based on our current operating schedule. So we fed all that data to Tesla. They looked at all that data and the current PG&E pricing. So you're right, it's based off the current pricing. And if PG&E changes parameters, then that price could go up or down, or the savings could go up or down, basically. But you're right.
So I have a question about that. On the current pricing, did they look at our time of use that currently occurs with pumping and how that corresponds to the electrical pricing?
Yeah, they took all our existing data for the past year and ran it through their model to look at the pricing. So that's how they came up with those savings, based on how we are operating and, you know, the current PG&E costs.
So we're probably going to make the money in the winter time rather than the summer time, is what I'm thinking, since we don't, you know, we try to go offline in the summer during the peak period times.
Right, exactly. And we're in conversations with Humboldt Bay too, because if Humboldt Bay gets this system installed too, are they going to be operating during peak time now like they don't operate currently? And they could use their batteries to be pumping during peak hours. In which case, if we didn't have this system, we might be forced to be operating during peak hours. So we're in those conversations with Humboldt Bay right now as well.
Okay. Sort of letting it sit with the board for a few minutes here to see if anything else comes up, but at any time, I'm willing to entertain a motion.
I'll move that we authorize the general manager and legal counsel sign a contract with Tesla for battery installation.
Second.
And there is a piece here about upon our general manager and district's legal counsel's review and approval of the contract documents. Is
I
that
suggest a friendly amendment that it be, the motion be per staff.
does that work in this case? Because the language is included here in the item in front of us. Is that sufficient as per staff?
It's conditional on acceptable legal contract. Yeah, I believe. David?
I'm willing to have any amendments to it that make it better. I don't have anything in front of me, so I'm just writing.
I'll second that in per staff.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comment? Okay, I'll call for a roll call.
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Corbett? Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
I'll vote yes, and subject to public comment.
And President Burke?
Yes, and we did. We had a couple of public comments here.
So we're all done with that?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
All right. So,
Thank you.
yes, thank you. Thanks for getting it to us in a timely manner here so we could jump on this program. It's exciting to have Tesla coming to town.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Okay, so that was an added item E9, and so then our next are turning to item F, the reports, and we'll start with the Recreation Advisory Committee. Couch?
Well, we met, we didn't have a quorum. We, let's see, what are the things I remember? Talked about more about building a BMX at the Washington property. Talked about some kind of a memorial for George Wheeler. And that's mostly what I remember. Everything else was just kind of the regular items. I'm sure Leslie will correct me in her report if I'm missing something.
Anything else to add at this time, Leslie?
No, nothing. No, everything that happened and was talked about is in the notes that's in my staff report. So if you have questions about those, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Area fund.
Oh, we are all done with that. Didn't meet.
Okay, the Redwood Region Economic Development Commission, Director Mayo.
Yeah, thank you. We've had some Zoom meetings. The number one thing I wanted to point out is that we received through the CARES Act recovery assistance grant allocation 5.5 million in recovery assistance for REDEC to be parsed out to our local community. So that's a good deal, and we're thankful for that, and that's my report.
Excellent, thank you. McKinleyville Senior Center Board Liaison. As I understand it, the board is not meeting at this time. But
Didn't meet.
Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah,
audit.
didn't meet. Okay.
And audit committee?
Oh. Do you want
Corbett?
We met with the auditors. Very preliminary meeting without real numbers from this year's audit. We asked to get copies of all the national accounting firm recommendations that will affect the district, probably all next year. But then that allows Shell and myself to take a look at those, see whether they think they will affect us or not. On the surface, it doesn't appear they will, but we want to read the fine print. And the rest of it is the audit's going forward.
Thank you. Employee negotiations?
Nothing to report.
The McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee did meet. There were report outs from the Sheriff's Department and the Fire District. And there was, at the last minute, a report on the Airport District. There's a document out for review, and so we heard a presentation on that. So one item that was voted on by the MCMAC was to request for the committee chair to request a letter for some support services from the county. Fairly nominal, but it gives us the chance as the MCMAC to list out the various things that help this committee have long-term institutional memory and to operate as the government body that it is. And I'm trying to remember if at the end, Pat, maybe you can help me out, if there was a letter in support of extending the review period for the airport district document. Is that right? Or a motion?
There was a motion to make a request to the airport director and the county to extend it. I don't know that it was in the form of a letter. I can't remember exactly how the.
Oh, it was not listed as an actionable item, and so I believe it was a request from the committee chair, just personally on behalf, if I remember that correctly.
Yes, I think you're remembering correctly.
There, are reports back on action that's happening for town center from the private properties going forward with wetland delineations, and then there's been some issues that have delayed further design, visualization, some personal issues. And so the town center ordinance process has not advanced at this time. Anything further to add, Pat?
No, just to point out that Tom Boyer has his hand raised.
Oh, thank you. So we don't, we don't generally do public comment at this time, right? Is that right? But I'm okay to entertain it. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the nod, Shell. So Tom, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, just only to point out this land use around the airport could be kind of controversial because it has to do with the permission of landowners that can do or not do things with their property associated with the airport. And it was kind of my impression as they gave the presentation is they tried to do a reach out to the community, but they didn't do a very good job. And that's the reason why they were doing an extension. So that anybody that has any property that's associated with the airport, might want to pay more attention.
Well, thanks for providing a little bit more there, Tom, because that's true. It was not accessible and not well advertised that this review period was happening. Okay.
So,
Mhm.
well, never mind.
Well, that's okay. You want to ask or make a statement?
Well, I just wanted to say that since the federal overlay after 9/11, all of us that are within 1,500 feet of the airport property line are screwed anyway. They've just about stymied us for any ability to do anything. So that's kind of a given already.
Okay, thank you. Moving to the Humboldt Local Area Agency Formation Commission and also at the state. Dave Couch?
Well, the local commission met. Let's see if I remember. We had a agenda item about Palmer Creek Community Service District expanded or kind of created a new subsidiary of themselves to expand water service to a few lots, and that was approved. And I commented on it that I was kind of thought it was interesting because I didn't think that making a new little special district that was not financially, economically feasible was a good idea, but they didn't take that to heart. And then we appointed a new public member to the committee, which was kind of controversial because there was an old public member who was hoping to continue, and they appointed a new member. And then Colette Mertz said they received a letter from McKinleyville and said it was a very nice letter, and she was so want to comment for the letter writers that she appreciated the letter she received about the discussion of incorporation in McKinleyville. And on the state, we're not going to have a state LAFCO meeting this year because of the COVID situation, and we're going to have kind of an online series of presentations for educational matters pertaining to LAFCO.
So Dave, could you repeat who that person was? I didn't hear that.
Colette Mertz is kind of the staff person for LAFCO. So,
yeah, but who is the new member, the new public person?
oh, I don't remember her name. It's a woman, and Mr. McPherson was the old person who was on the commission. So,
okay, right.
I can get you that name later. I just don't have it on
No
the
big
top.
deal. I just missed it. You didn't say it. And that's the reason I missed it. No big deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more, Dave? Or Director Couch? Okay. Environmental Matters Committee, Dave, Director Couch?
We did not meet.
Okay.
John, unless you have anything for.
Nope. So moving to item F2, legislative and regulatory reports. Anything, do any board members have any items for this agenda spot?
I just wanted to say that we're still working hard on our 5% carve out for special districts through WRDA, and we're still working on that pretty hard. And, pretty positive, but we're still working on it. Congress is not doing anything substantial these days. Now that sounds silly because obviously they're working overtime on a lot of respects on the COVID stuff. So, but on almost everything else, it's like, good luck.
Okay, any other items from the board or our general manager? Okay, then we'll move to staff reports. Starting with support services, our finance director. You're on mute and I'm on mute. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. My turn to miss the button. I have very little to add to the written report. I would like to highlight that the county has gotten the interest posted to the county trust accounts. I noted that last month that they had not yet done that. They have now done that. However, the June 30th tax allocation will not be completed. I called the auditor controller's office. They're not going to be completed until mid to late August. So, so the draft treasurer's report that's included in this board packet does not include the allocation, the June allocation, but it will be in the finalized trial balance, and of course it will be in the audited financials. So given the delay,
Yeah, that's good. No problem.
given the delay, I've set a date for the final trial balance at the end of September. And that's really all I had to add. Thank you.
Thank you. And I notice here that you state that the current lock list is a little longer than normal, starting to see some higher balances. Just want to keep an eye on that. Do you want to add anything more?
Most of the ratepayers are are really making a concerted effort to keep current on their bills, even the ones that are dealing with unemployment. But there are a few, of course, who are, going to take advantage of the fact that, and we're continuing to make very concerted effort to collect and to make arrangements with everybody and keep people as current as possible, because nobody wants to come out of this, and we don't want anyone to have to come out of this with an excessive balance on their water bill, because that's really difficult. But yeah, so overall, it's really not a big, not at an alarming rate. And if it goes up or increases in any way, I will certainly let the board know and keep you guys apprised. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And not seeing any questions, we'll move to item F3B, our operations department, presented by our operations director, James Henry. Where'd James go? There he is.
You know when you hit the little red X microphone on your screen that doesn't work, you actually have to go down and hit unmute. So just want to let you guys know who don't know that, because I clicked it like 45 times. I have nothing further to add.
Well, James, I'm going to use your item to just talk about the double check valve testing. My house has been a case study in double check valve testing, and you know, first it was a box filled with gopher dirt to the hilt, so you know, uncovering it and getting in there, and when I thought I had cleaned it, I actually didn't even get it close enough to be able to move the valves. So through all of us, and having Lance come out and talking about and looking at the valves, my husband decided we would move the valve system above ground. And through all of this dialogue, I came to understand that really having the valves above ground makes it easier for everyone. You know, the homeowner doesn't have to dig out the box of dirt, nor does MCSD have to dig in there. And it's actually the more desirable arrangement to get those double check valves up and out of the ground so they can be checked much more quickly. So we are almost in compliance, but we ran into an issue with having one of the valves not work. So we're gonna, you know, keep working at it to get the double check valves replaced. And I'm gonna work on a communication piece so that we can sort of tell the story, see how many homeowners we could get motivated to try to get their valves above ground. As I understand, it's a savings for staff on when there is an above ground system. It's just so much faster to be able to check, and helps our staff move through these check valves more efficiently. So I just wanted to say, you know, it's such a pleasure to get to talk with Lance about double check valves, and I'm working on it. So we'll get that thing repaired in place, or replaced, I should say. So just a little double check valve story. I don't know if you have anything to add on what I said, James, but.
Well, it was such a good story. I don't want to ruin it. But I will add that as much as it is, yes, it is much easier for the whole world if you raise your double check valve above ground. There is a little bit more risk to the customer because it does get cold here to freeze. So, you know, wrapping them with the insulated bags is one thing. And you and I, you know, I can send an email through Pat or however we want to do it. But you know, once you put above ground, you also want to lock them so that somebody doesn't come around and turn your water off on you in the middle of the night. But so putting the bags on there and locking and having a locking mechanism, not only for you but for the district, so we can test it. There's just a few little things like that. But yes, absolutely, in the long run for the district, it's wonderful to have above ground. For the customer, it's just a little bit more, you know, because your pipes could freeze and things like that. So, but other than that, yeah, I was fully aware. I just found out later today about your number one check valve. So,
yeah, we were a little disappointed to not pass the second time.
I am very, I feel very confident that it's just a small little bit of dirt, and if you flush it out, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes.
So the above ground is actually an issue that I have kind of avoided bringing up, but it is the code that they're supposed to be above ground. And in Arcata, we're up to about 98% with raised 98% of them. And so that is what the state ask for backflows, that they be above ground.
So
I'm
is
not
it?
going to bring it up ever, but
Oh, there I went, opened the can of worms. Is that, so that's the case for new valves then? I assume that they are above ground, but getting the old ones above ground is probably a little harder to get into compliance.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Sorry. I believe the direction we're going is, obviously the district can't go pay to raise a bunch of double check valves. But as they fail and need to be replaced, that's a good time for us to come in and say, and now we need you to raise them up. Yes, it is. The state says we want them installed above ground if possible. There's some language in there that is lenient, unless it's an RPP, which has a dumping device on the bottom. That is mandatory above ground. It has to have a clearance and everything else. But double check valves, there is a little leniency with, and back in the day when they came in, they lean more towards the leniency side. So it's, we see fewer. We're not seeing more. We're seeing fewer because people fill wells and cap wells and get rid of the double check valve. So as the district grows, we're seeing less double check valves.
Okay.
So I had a comment, if you.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So over the last 45 years, I've had at least 45 failures on different properties. But I can tell you that if you clean that out sufficiently, and then you pour about 2.5 inches of regular white laundry detergent down there, you will not have that problem happen again. And it works excellent.
Okay, taken from an expert.
But
not, I would say not officially from MCSD. That's board comment.
Actually, it was many years ago. Many years ago, it was an MCSD, and we all know who lived down at the ranch many years ago. But he suggested it, and it worked like a champ.
Okay. Anything more to add? Okay, moving on. F3, we're coming to our Recreation Director, Leslie Frisbee.
I have nothing further to add.
Okay, and then we come to item F3D, our General Manager's Report. Pat Kaspari.
And I do want to highlight a couple things that are in the report. One goes back to an issue Director Corbett brought up at the beginning. As the board is aware, we're approached by True North and Arcata House and DHHS for housing, a tenting site for homeless people on district property during the COVID emergency. We had one subsequent phone call here in the middle of July with True North. And it turns out that, so originally Arcata House was going to manage the tenting site, and County DHHS was going to pay for their management of the site. Well, it turns out that there's money available through the CARES Act and DHHS to expand the in-hotel housing of homeless people in McKinleyville. So instead of pursuing the tenting site, they are going to focus their energy on housing additional people in hotels and then transferring them or helping transfer to more permanent housing. So they are not going to pursue the tenting site at this time. And Director Corbett is absolutely correct. The whole time we were talking to them, it was that we were going to house this during the emergency declaration of COVID. So once that passes, I don't know that the district does have the legal authority to set anything like that up. I'll pause there if anyone has any questions on that. Seeing none, I'm going to move on. Then I do want to highlight one other thing. And the community forest. The district has been for years working with Green Diamond and Trust for Public Lands on pursuing grant funding to establish a community forest. We got a call 2 weeks ago from Trust for Public Lands saying that we were in the final running from state natural resource agency for a $4 million grant to fund the purchase of the community forest. So President Burke, Director Corbett, myself, Parks and Rec Director Frisbee all got on a phone call with Trust for Public Lands, as well as RCAA, as well as Green Diamond representatives, and made a pitch to the state for trying to make it from the second round of cuts to the third round that basically says, okay, yes, we will fund this. So we talked to them about MCSD, our abilities, as well as the community forest, the trail network that the county has already established, and made a pitch for the community forest. We still don't know if we are going to get that funding, but they said that we should know by the end of August if we make the cut. This is coming up on us really quickly, and we weren't really aware that Trust for Public Lands had submitted that grant application. So we were kind of caught flat-footed, but Trust, we will be coming back to if it gets funded, we will be coming back to the public and to the board to help us, plan that process. And I'm going to pause right there too to see if anyone has any comments. And Mary.
Yeah, I want to sort of formally establish a board committee of Director Corbett and myself to continue to work with general manager and staff on this item. And I will always retain the option to be able to change that committee formation later in the year. But for continuity's sake, with Director Corbett and myself having been a part of these initial conversations, I'm going to have us take the first run at this community forest. So we're in, what would it be, an ad hoc or a special committee?
I guess it could be either.
Yeah. And is that all right with you, Director Corbett? I think that was a yes. Okay. Okay.
So just a technical question. I have no problem with that, but I'm not sure that that's an action item that we can do.
Oh.
And it's fine to do that, but I don't think it's an action item that we can actually do. I'm not sure. It's my understanding. I'm thinking it's not something that.
Isn't it at the board, at the chair's discretion to form a committee?
That's what I wasn't sure of. At the chair's discretion, some of that is. So I just was looking for some clarity on that, and I think it's fine. I'm not. I don't want to muddy the water. Just I think we need to be sure we do it correctly. That's all.
Well, I appreciate checking on procedure for sure. It looks like Director Corbett is trying to speak. You're on mute.
You're muted, John.
John, you're on mute. You're on mute, John.
It hates me.
So that was the clearest thing you've said lately.
If it's a committee of 2 or less, it would be within the discretion of the chair to appoint and implement regardless of board motion. Although I commend the board chair for announcing it, I would say for legal reasons, I would recommend an ad hoc committee. Not that it's absolutely necessary, but that would be most appropriate. And if you go longer than 1 year, we probably should get a board sanction to the committee to avoid Brown Act.
Thank you for that. And I changed my appointment to an ad hoc committee.
And I'm going to thumb to thumb here with board member. Some people elbow, but we thumb to thumb on the Zoom.
And were you going to continue, Pat?
The last thing I wanted to add is we still are not putting a cell tower up at the tanks.
Well, I want to jump in and say two things. One is we have started a informal 2x2 and met with our supervisor who's here tonight. Hello, Supervisor Madrone. And also wanted to call out that Director Mayo has been setting up meetings, and I want to thank you, Director Mayo, for getting our general manager out and getting him introduced to people in our community. That's really great. Thanks for taking the time to do that. Anything more, Pat?
I do not.
Yeah, this is
Oh, John, you just muted yourself.
Oh. John, you're on mute.
Again, John, that's the most succinct thing you've said tonight. Shoot.
John, you're muted.
When you get off mute, we can really hear you pretty well.
Here he is.
There you go.
okay. I just wanted to say, I was unaware Supervisor Madrone was listening in. I just wanted to thank him. He wrote a letter of support of the community forest on very short notice. Appreciated the effort.
Great.
Oh, thank you.
For a change.
So let's see, that was general manager's report, and for president's report, I don't have anything to add, but I wanted to cede some of my time to our supervisor to see if he wanted to chime in. We brought up a few items that are good to report on. Just would like to say hi and see if you want to have a few words.
Sure, thank you, Chairperson Burke. I really think it's great that the community, that you're able to start moving forward on the community forest, and was happy to get that letter together. Also appreciate that we now set up monthly meetings with Pat, with the general manager, Mary as the chair, and also Maya Conrad from the MICMAC, so that we can stay in communication better on things that are coming along each month. So we've started that process, and I look forward to those monthly meetings and appreciate your time on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're moving to item F5, board member comments, announcements, reports, and agenda item requests.
Go ahead and throw one in. So I appreciate you starting the 2x2s. We had done that for quite some time. And when General Manager Sope passed away, that kind of fell by the wayside a little bit. But it's important that we meet with department heads, many different types of meetings. It's always good to have the liaison type thing, but it's much better to have the direct meetings with the different department heads and department level people. So just wanted to throw that into your development of those meetings.
Yeah, point well taken. And in the last meeting, it just became really apparent how nice it was for, Pat, our general manager, to even talk to Supervisor Madrone and say, hey, I'm getting ready to make these calls and these things are happening. So even when it's not more at staff level, it's just nice to keep everybody in the loop so that we know what's happening. I mean, the first meeting I felt like was really informative for having those cross agency and committee conversations.
Right, they're very important.
Any other comments, announcements, item requests?
I remind everybody we have this election coming up in the fall, and usually MCSD co-sponsors a candidate debate with the League of Women Voters. So that might be kind of complicated this year. It might have to be a Zoom debate or something. So I was hoping Pat and April would, kind of get in touch with the League of Women Voters and make sure that that happens rather than fall by the wayside, because I think it'll be kind of an important thing.
Good point, David. Thank you. Director Couch.
Not sure the board is supposed to co-sponsor. We've had a bit of contention over that over the years, but I do think a debate's a good idea.
Well, they usually us because we provide a site, so.
There you go. I agree with that, David. We don't co-sponsor or sponsor. We've had discussions over that over the years.
Okay, anything else? All right, well, we didn't get you out of here before dark, Director Mayo. And you're gonna
All right,
have
the cows will eat whenever I feed them. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll adjourn our meeting tonight. Thank you all, and thanks to the public who stayed with us. Thank you, Supervisor Madrone, for being here. Have a good night.
Night, everyone.
Thank you.
Right.